is to actually start visualizing it even further, trying to see कि क्या हो सकता है. And I'll give you an example. When we first thought of a quad motor, the idea was not to actually think of a quad motor, right? The idea was that the way it started was that Rahul is also from the same batch as Ashish. So I'm 2002 batch. I'm 2000 batch, and Ashish and Rahul are 2000 batch. They were my juniors. And I was trying to promote this innovation cell, and Rahul came to me and said that, Ankit, there are a lot of junk bikes lying that IIT Bilkate. Can we rig out one of their engines, make it working, and create a hovercraft? I was like, wait, you're far ahead of me, right? I didn't even know how a hovercraft works, and you want to rig off a bike engine, which is another problem on its own, and you want to build a hovercraft. So the first thing that came to my mind was, let me break the problem down into pieces that I can solve today. And what we actually did was, we sat down in one afternoon. We had done some robotics in the past, and I had done a little bit more than he had because I had more time in my hands in IIT at that time. And we actually, in one afternoon, made about 4 or 5 different prototypes of hovercrafts, from your regular thermocol and some random motors that we had, some propeller that we had sort of salvaged from some place or whatever it is. So that's the first thing. You start building a proof of concept. कि मैं बना भी सकता हूँ या नहीं बना सकता हूँ. So I think that's one of the most important places to begin. You saw the cardboard wheels that I made, right? I had this vision कि यार wheel ऐसा भी होना चाहिए. And the next thing I wanted to do was actually create a mock-up. If that mock-up is reasonable, and if it can sort of prove that your concept may work, the next thing is to find where you can get the real capital to actually implement it. And the real capital, the sources for real capital, I'm sure that the innovation cell still exists. There are various other places you can go to your faculty saying that, see, I have this idea, I have this random mock-up as well, I've created for it. You may have to unfortunately create a project report, which most of you will hate creating, but you'll have to pen down your idea. You'll have to say that this is the idea, this is the, this is the detail of what it will solve, the problem it will solve, the sketch, and possibly you may have to also figure out how much will you actually spend in trying to build a prototype. So you will have to figure out कि इसमें इतना metal लगेगा, इतना ये wheel लगेगा, wheel बनाना है तो aluminium से बनाना पड़ेगा, तो उसको turn करवाना पड़ेगा, उसकी machining का cost. So once you start doing these things, right, it becomes very interesting that you get into a lot of depth. कि wheel बनाना है तो कैसे बनेगा, रेडीमेड मिलता है क्या, रेडीमेड मिलता है तो उसका प्राइस आ गया, नहीं मिलता है तो खुद बनाना है तो उसको कैसे बनाना है, किस रॉ मटेरियल से बनाना है. तो you have to basically from one idea you start digging in deeper and actually growing into imagining each and every component of that, creating that project report, take it to somebody. I'm sure you get the funding in IIT Bombay. At least in IIT Bombay that's not a problem, that you won't get the money to implement it. Once you have that capital, implement it. Actually get behind it and solve all the problems that you're likely to encounter in that. And the problems will include the fact that you imagine some things can happen in this world and they don't happen in this world. And you learn a lot. I mean, the amount I've learned in terms of real world experience in implementing projects in IT has been phenomenal. हम लोग सोचते हैं कि 5 millimeters डिजाइन किया तो 5 millimeters ही बन के आएगा कोई चीज़. वो एक्चुअली हमेशा 5.2, 5.5 अगर वेंडर पे छोड़ दिया तो वो 10 का भी बना के देगा. साहब मैंने सोचा कि आपने 10 बोला था 5 में, तो ये रियल वर्ल्ड प्रॉब्लम आते हैं. That's what ultimately gives you the experience for doing it. So it's not that difficult. If you start thinking about it logically, it's a step after the next. You think about its potential. So when we made that hovercraft prototype, we realized कि यार ये यहाँ पे चल जाएगा, but हर जगह नहीं चलेगा. So what next? We decided कि hovercrafts are not good enough. Helicopters need to be made. अब helicopter के बारे में रिसर्च करना शुरू किया. Helicopters के बारे में रिसर्च किया तो realize किया कि यार ये तो इस जगह में नहीं बना सकते. Because they are extremely complicated. I don't know how many of you are from aerospace or remote interest in understanding about helis. They are one of the most complex dynamics to control, right? And when you look at your model helicopter that you get in a toy shop, each and every component is so tiny, there was no way we were going to make it by our own hands. We just knew that and we ditched that. But having said that, we did not drop the problem from our minds. And eventually, after having slept with it for quite a few number of months at stretch, one fine day, the idea for this quadruped struck us. And at that time, we had no clue that anywhere in the world something like this had been discovered. But you can imagine when we came up with an idea like this, it was so simple, so elegant, that for 6 months, we were in a euphoric state, all three of us. Boss, ये क्या सोच लिया हम लोगों ने? 6 दिन के बाद पता चला वो 20 साल से. That's it. That's a different story. But once you get an idea, you have to run wild with it. You have to basically make that idea. A lot of times I used to tell people that you need to let the idea consume you. Because unless and until that idea consumes you, unless and until its potential excites you, it's never going to give you enough energy to be able to pull through some of the difficult times when you face while actually building it. So, one of the most difficult times was the first prototype was basically a crash. The second prototype was again a crash. So, you'll encounter so many problems, and ultimately those problems are going to bog you down. And the only thing that will get you up is the fact that what you thought of is so amazing that if you were ever be able to realize it, it will pull you through all those difficult things. So that's it's a very sketchy answer, but yeah, if you start thinking about it logically, break it down, you will get it. It's not a very difficult answer.
I think a few of you have got lecture at 6:30. How many of you have? I mean, if you want to go, we can possibly.
Yeah, of course.
But you can please leave. I'm sorry that you have to leave, but and others can ask some question for 10 more minutes.